Tick tock, tick tock. 18 days and change till the Iowa Caucuses. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. I hope everybody had a great, blessed, and wonderful Christmas. I sure did. It was a really good time. I think I had a really good time. I think the kids had a really good time. I don't think I had a good time. I know I had a good time, and I know the family did as well. I hope you guys enjoyed it with yours, and we're on to the new year. A couple of days until the new year here. Let's do like a little bit of a status update. We take it easy, but we don't take it off. We're going to do a status update going into the new year here with, like I said, oops, you could see it on your side over there on the screen, a little bit more than 18 days and change before Iowans will go to caucus for the nomination for the Republican nomination. All right, listen, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. Of course, subscribe if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. That will let you know when we're going to go live. You don't need to do that on Rumble. It'll just let you know, as will, of course, the best place to follow us on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. I'm a little bit congested. You know, everybody else got on antibiotics before the holidays. I did not. You know, I got a little bit stronger of an immune system. I think I'm going to kick it without it, but it's taking a little bit longer. There are a couple articles that I see recently that I think are worth going over because I think that they underscore what is the lay of the land here. And also what each campaign is really thinking. All right, what they would have to do in order to measure what their campaigns by any measure of success whatsoever. All right, so there's our countdown clock. But first and foremost, we heard a lot about how much Never Back Down was going to spend on get out the vote operations. And how much they have spent, which is an ungodly amount of money for a super PAC in the state of Iowa to win a caucus. All for what are very clearly sliding poll numbers for the Florida governor. Even in the state, which is a must-win for him. All right? I mean, look. In history, historically, it's a must-win. He's got nowhere else to go after Iowa. Iowa, for most people who run the Iowa Hail Mary, will not provide you momentum going into New Hampshire. It'll blunt you. That has been the history of it. Trump, and this is why I think it's such a great article to read, because Ann Seltzer, it's her state. Look, it's her state. She knows the landscape is changing. What Barnes and I have been saying about Iowa now for years. She sees it. She brings it up. The Trump campaign saw it. And it's part of the frustration that these non-Trump candidates, especially when it comes to Iowa, Team DeSantis, they've been so frustrated because they didn't understand this. They misread the room in basically every way you could possibly misread a political room. However, they misread history and the demographics in the state of Iowa. And when you run the Hail Mary strategy like a Rick Santorum or a Mike Huckabee or Ted Cruz, you kill yourself going into New Hampshire. That is that has been the layout of the Republican Party now for many years. Meaning, if you're going to go all in on what can be considered by the rest of the nation as draconian policies, especially socially, you're going to hurt yourself going into the more moderate contests in New Hampshire and then South Carolina. South Carolina looks a lot more like New Hampshire when you're looking just simply at ideology. But I need you to understand that the words mean different things in different states. So when you tell a pollster you are conservative in the state of Iowa, 10 years ago, that meant something very different than if you told a pollster you were conservative in New Hampshire, or you told a pollster you were conservative in South Carolina or Florida, okay? But those three states are obviously much more important to understand this dynamic. In New Hampshire, it meant you don't like foreign wars. It meant you are fiscally responsible. You don't like blown up budgets. You don't like tax cuts for the rich. That's what it used to mean. South Carolina was a little bit more of a mix. It meant also that you're more socially conservative. Maybe if you're in the downstate of the country, and there's more evangelicals there, you are more socially conservative. If you are more by Erie County, it meant that you are fiscally conservative. And it was this mixture and this hodgepodge. And it wasn't until 2016 where Donald Trump put Donald Trump came along and put all of those coalitions together and wound up turning South Carolina essentially into a winner-take-all state by winning everywhere because he put together pluralities or majorities of these coalitions all across the state. In New Hampshire, there is something different. There is an element of neoconservatism in the Republican Party that is absolutely toxic for a general election in New Hampshire. Absolutely toxic. But the New Hampshire winner wants to go on and he wants to win. So John McCain wins New Hampshire. He gets slaughtered in a general election, right? What's another good example? Mitt Romney, slaughtered in a general election. Trump is not polling very well in New Hampshire because it's changing as a state. But in 16, before it went through some of these profound changes and before the advent of mail-in voting, let's get serious, Donald Trump made it very close. Why? Because he ran as an America firster. By the time 2020 came along, a lot of the media had voters duped into thinking that Donald Trump was a dangerous Reagan kind of kamikaze conservative who may start World War III. Well, guess what? Now the voters understand that's not the case. But in New Hampshire and Minnesota, in many of these states, they told us that they believed that was the case. All right. So you can't fault, that's the media. You want to fault somebody, you fault the media. It is on the voters to make sure they know better, but here we are. Okay. Now, when it comes to Trump, he never ran the Iowa Hail Mary. He is running based on his record. This is what I did for you, Iowa. This is how much I won your state, Iowa. All these other Ted Cruz-like conservatives, all these other, Rick Santorum, like even if they would have won the nominations, they never would have won the state. I can win, right? Plus, I did this for you while I won. So that is what's kind of driving his lead. It's a loyalty, and it's a specific thing toward Iowa. And also, there's something very critical there that we've been talking about for months since I started the Hawkeye State poll this year, and nobody else really understood, except for you. If you watched the show, you understood. Now they see it, and now they realize, oh, crap, where on earth did these people come from? And what Barnes and I have been trying to tell people all along, which is that Iowa looks very different. So you can run like Trump, and in the middle of the ideological purity test, which is run by the Des Moines Register poll, Trump came in the Goldilocks zone. Ron DeSantis, who ran a campaign that typically would have been the campaign to win Iowa. Go get Bob Vandersplats in your pants. Go get all these other people that are lunatics and will never win a general election, but get their support and you'll win the Iowa caucuses. Guess what? He came in too conservative. Nikki Haley came in too moderate. Donald Trump came in just right. And because he's not running that Hail Mary strategy, if he wins Iowa, he can propel himself into New Hampshire, and which, by the way, we will talk about some of that polling in New Hampshire. I wrote an article on locals. I really think you all need to read it. The polling in New Hampshire is always finicky, always funny. It is a weird state to poll and always has been for a primary. However, what happened last week and really leading up until last week does not seem to me to be a mistake, a fluke, an outlier here and there. One pollster completely polled an ineligible portion of the electorate. The deadline to change your registration to vote in the other party's primary is over. It's been over for months. So how any pollster could justify having Democrats in a Republican sample is beyond me. You need to screen for eligibility. Within days, another credible poll had come out that did, in fact, screen correctly for eligibility and found a humongous Trump lead. Within hours, another poll that isn't as credible and did not release even the basic standards of disclosure was being pushed all over New Hampshire and Fox News by Sununu-friendly media. That's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So if you haven't read that, go read it, because we need to show you where we really are in the state of these things. All right. Anyway, because again, I want to state this again, because Trump did not run the Hail Mary strategy, he has the opportunity to do something that only a few other candidates had been able to do. One was him in 16. And if it wasn't for Ted Cruz's dirty little trick on Ben Carson, he would have pulled it off, which is win Iowa and win New Hampshire. The other candidate who looked like he could have done it before he let the same consultants who are killing candidates now kill his campaign was Scott Walker. Scott Walker, other than Donald Trump, is the only Republican candidate for president we have ever polled who had both led in Iowa and New Hampshire at the same time. No other Republican candidate in my career or in the history of our polling has ever done that. It's only Donald Trump and Scott Walker. Unfortunately for Scott Walker, he could never find his lane, and George Will's wife destroyed his campaign. Of course, he's a grown man too, and he let her do it, so there we are. We don't need an apprentice in the White House. Remember that? Didn't go over well. All right, so let's read this, because all we ever heard about was how formidable Ron DeSantis' ground game was going to be because of Never Back Down. And in truth, I've been telling you that Never Back Down, in fact, did not spend as much money as they previously were expected to spend on actual ground games compared to other expenses. They spent a ridiculous amount on stuff that is otherwise and normally left up to a campaign to do. But because the DeSantis campaign basically had gone broke by having big donors max out, and then when he cratered in the polls, they could not get any more grassroots donations, so they relied on Never Back Down and big donors cutting checks. Literally, folks, less than 200 people basically bankrolled Never Back Down. That's crazy when you consider the amount of money. All right, so it's very shadowy, but we do know some stuff about it. Obviously, it's a PAC, but we do know some stuff about it. And a lot of the money came from a committee that was transferred from money that was contributed by not former Trump supporters who formerly supported him to run for governor, run for re-election, and then they transferred that money into Never Back Down. All right, so all of this talk about Never Back Down and what we have heard and what many other people, it's being reported everywhere now. So what I told you 2 weeks ago is true. Kim Reynolds' organization is kind of being subbed out because they did not spend the money that they claim to have spent. And there was a really embarrassing New York Times article the other day that showed how Never Back Down's people were just on the doorsteps of Iowa caucus goers, telling them how they're just doing this to get money and they support Donald Trump, so you should caucus for Donald Trump. I mean, folks, that is extremely embarrassing. But what do you get when you hire the same people who Adam Laxalt hired, who were gambling at Caesar's Palace instead of door knocking in Clark County? I don't know why you would expect anything else. So here we go. Now we're going to hear about Trump's ground game, which was under the radar the entire time. All right. And based on something that nobody wanted to acknowledge, admit, or even, acknowledge was real. But it is real. And we told you that with our polling. Even now, we were there. I hate to say this. No, I don't. What am I talking about? This is fake modesty. Rich, knock it off. I don't hate to say it. It's absolutely true. We showed the dynamic of this race before anybody else did. We did so back in the summer because we knew the electorate would not be what everyone was projecting it to be. And because we were gauging persuadability before other people were gauging persuadability. So lo and behold, the Des Moines Register poll comes over, the DMR poll, the Iowa poll, whatever. They come over, and now they've basically heard it over to us. Fox News heard it over to us. The only other one I would say is the Iowa State University poll did not ignore what we saw and what they were seeing as well. And their electorate was certainly projected to be closer to ours. So they were on the same track like we were. How Donald Trump's 2024 campaign quietly built a grassroots juggernaut for the Iowa caucuses. Whoa! Where did this come from? That's not what you've been hearing for months. You heard the polls are fake, and that for the first time in history, the most sophisticated $100 million ground game built by Never Back Down is going to somehow close a 20, let's be generous, 20 to 30 something point gap in the state of Iowa, something that has absolutely, positively never happened before. Before we even get into it, I did do a little update here of the early state polls before we get into the article. And just to show you what is going on with Iowa, it is Trump, 51.3 to 18.6 for DeSantis, and 16.1 for Nikki Haley. So a total of, average together, Trump plus 32.7. Sean Trendy had written a great analysis 2 weeks ago. And I say great because, he's lost some objectivity in recent years because he hates Donald Trump. But And this time he's like, look, we just never saw a polling miss like this before in the state of Iowa. And it would take both an enormous polling miss and a unheard of shift in momentum in order to undo this lead. And the truth is, anything is possible in politics, folks, but we look at historical data and the empirical record for a reason, because it does tend to repeat itself or at least come in very close to it. There are always going to be historic firsts, but if you can see those bar charts right there, it's getting a little bit ridiculous to expect that somehow a 32-point lead is going to be erased within 18 days and change. All right, so especially considering everything that Donald Trump has been through. And the argument was, well, the ground game. Well, Donald Trump had a ground game too. Donald Trump had 250 some odd endorsements from evangelical leaders, and all you ever heard about was Bob. I feel bad for people who get duped by these narratives. Urbandale, Iowa. Galen Beckeria. Right? Is that how you say it? Beckeria? I'm sorry, Galen, if I'm messing up your name. But as he wrapped up an intimate gathering of Donald Trump loyalists at the campaign state headquarters in early December, senior advisor Alex Mayer let the crowd in on some, quote, insider information, unquote. Any volunteer caucus captain who persuades 10 or more Iowans to support the former president on caucus day, and they all show up, will be invited to, quote, a special small event with President Trump at the Republican National Convention, Mayer said. Quote, for every single Trump caucus captain in this room, you are a member of this campaign, Mayer told the group, gathered in a small office, plaster wall to wall with signs of memorabilia. What are you doing? What you are doing is part of this campaign, unquote. And there you can see a picture from the Des Moines Register. Lily Smith snapped it on December 19th in Waterloo, Iowa. Even as he wages an unprecedented primary battle as a former incumbent facing 91 criminal charges. By the way, let me just say this because a lot of literature is just totally bunk at this point. There will be no conviction before Donald Trump stands for election. Let me put this again. There will be no federal conviction before Donald Trump stands for election. And it doesn't look like Alvin Bragg or Fani Willis are going to have their act together either. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke with a member of Trump's legal team, and he absolutely called exactly how this was going to go in the moment he filed a brief. So I got to be honest this time, and I've been very critical of Trump's legal team, although I'm not a lawyer. I just felt like that some of his prior legal teams have always appeared to be, the election ones were a wreck, but legal, facing charges or impeachments or special counsels, I always felt that they were not aggressive enough. They were playing with the old set of rules when very clearly his enemies were not. This legal team is different. And I will tell you this, Will Scharf being added to the mix was a brilliant strategy. And this time, they seem to have a much better understanding of the legal landscape. And they flat up told me, no, this is no conviction before the election. So that talking point is dead. So anyway, he remains the Republican frontrunner in Iowa, steadily increasing support and polling over the last year. In the latest Iowa poll conducted earlier this month, he leads by 32 percentage points, which is just about what I told you the average is now on Real Clear Politics. It is 32.7. All right, so compare how presidential candidates fared in the 3 Iowa polls before the caucuses. There you have it. There will be one more. I believe there will be one more on the eve of the caucus. That's how the Des Moines poll usually works. Unless, of course, they decide to spike it again like they did for Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg to hurt Bernie Sanders in 2020. Again, I've been telling you guys not to take your eye off the Iowa State poll and our poll because the truth of the matter is they were more accurate than the Des Moines Register poll. The only reason why the 2020 averages were even close to accurate for Bernie Sanders was because of the Iowa State University poll. Everybody else either overstated Buttigieg or overstated Biden. They were all over the place. Bernie was robbed of his momentum going into New Hampshire, and that was intentional. He's been far from subtle about his projected results on caucus day, a historic and landslide victory over Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, and the rest of his Republican opponents. I actually don't think that's true because if you listen to the quote, he understands what I'm trying to explain to you. If anything is like, if it's 10 points or less, the media is going to go nuts. Like, this is a race or something. And they're going to try to give Nikki Haley all the momentum she can carry going into New Hampshire. I kid you not. I bet you if he wins by 20 something points, they're going to say that he understated, that his performance was lacking. He knows that. So he says, quote, the poll numbers are scary because we're leading by so much. The key is you have to go out and vote, Trump told supporters in Waterloo on December 19th. If we win in a massive number, but it's a little bit less than that, they'll say, oh, we didn't meet expectations. He's totally right. Now, there's a reason why he's pushing this, though. It's risky, but there's a reason. His campaign team in Iowa has sought to build a grassroots operation that meets those expectations, recruiting what one official called a, quote, field army of volunteer captains who double as frontline recruiters now and precinct representatives on caucus night. After coming in second place in 2016 with a scattershot campaign operation and effectively running unopposed in 2020, Trump's revamp, he had no campaign operation in 2016, really. None. And he still almost beat Ted Cruz. And he would have beaten Ted Cruz. Let's be honest. He would have beaten Ted Cruz. I don't know why we're whitewashing history all of a sudden, but Ted Cruz apologized on a debate stage for the scam that his campaign pulled on Ben Carson's voters, who at the time, even Karl Rove, Trump hater himself, Bushy-ite acolyte himself, Karl Rove went on Fox News with his whiteboard, basically copying and pasting what he read from People's Pundit Daily, and did the math to show that it absolutely cost Donald Trump the Republican caucus in Iowa. So I don't understand why. It's weird. We're like, it's a Twilight Zone thing or something going on, folks. Trump's revamped Iowa team was tasked with, quote, expanding the electorate of the caucuses ahead of 2024, mobilizing passionate supporters and reaching what officials call low propensity voters who need a nudge to show up on caucus night. The aim, bury their opponents in the Hawkeye state. Folks, we went through the Rust Belt poll and I showed you basically everywhere there was a larger than average chunk of voters who were saying, I'm a first-time primary participant. I am a first-time caucus participant. However, in the state of Iowa, in 2016, it was like 45%. A lot of people don't know that. It was. And this time, the percentage of people who are telling us that they are first-time caucus goers is indicating it could be even bigger. It is cold in Iowa when the caucus goes. It's mostly snowing wherever, what part of the state you're in. Of course, it differs, but it is not easy to just go out and caucus. And then it's an event. It's time. So it's easier, theoretically, to get people to show up for a primary for their first time. Theoretically. But, however, Iowa has actually shown a great propensity to get a larger number of first-time people out. Why? Maybe because it's caucus and it's active participation. Laura just walked in. It's a caucus. It's active participation. So people, they have a history of it. It's a culture. So let me just read this quote. You look fine. Thank you. So do you. I like you in my gear. Your merch? My merch. You always look just dead sexy in the People's Pundit merchandise. President Trump has done more to expand the Republican Party and shift Iowa red than any other official in this state, Alex Latchman said. He's the campaign's early state director. Under President Trump and his policies, Iowans were more secure, free, and prosperous than any other time. Trump inspires and energizes voters like no other. If I'm killing his name too, sorry. Latcham said, which is why the campaign expects, quote, tens of thousands of Iowans to show up in caucus for the first time. I don't know how you can expect that at this point. Among the sea of ubiquitous red hats worn to rallies for the former president, a new white and gold variation of the MAGA hat began to dot the crowds of supporters at recent Iowa events. The limited edition Trump Caucus Captain caps, complete with a gold-stitched Iowa state flag on the side, are given only to Iowans who volunteer to serve as a caucus captain, an amped-up volunteer role that the campaign has designated as their front line of support. This was brilliant. Not every candidate would have been even able to pull this off because the MAGA hat is so iconic. Having a white and gold MAGA hat saying I'm different, there's something special about me is more motivating than any other hat. I mean, that's just true. It's not the same for some other candidate to do that. Now, if some other candidate was able to make them their own hat, a never back down hat or always go to war hat, whatever the other candidates can put on their hats, If they were able to do that and make it as iconic, that would have been a smart idea too. But Trump is using his advantages wisely. More than 2,000 of these captains have been charged with delivering a 3-minute speech in support of Trump on caucus night, as well as observing and reporting to the campaign the final vote tally at their precinct. Listen, this is going to be important. I remember in 20 when the state delegate equivalents for Democrats being reported were not what was reported to us on the ground. The fact Trump has this many people, 2,000 caucus captains is a lot. The fact that he has this many people is going to make it hard for anybody to pull anything that they may have been thinking about pulling. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen on the Republican side. I've seen it happen on the Democratic side. Again, the most brazen one, I think, was with Pete Buttigieg campaign, their people on the ground, and what they did to Bernie Sanders, which is, folks, they just falsely reported state delegate equivalents and falsely allocated state delegate equivalents to that turn into state delegates. On the Democratic side, it's a little bit convoluted how it works, but I've explained this before in other shows. I'm not going to re-enter this, but they were assigning Bernie Sanders's SDEs to Pete Buttigieg. It was really wrong, and Bernie had people on the ground, so he caught it, but he wasn't able to catch it in time to fight back the media narrative. And his campaign manager, for his part, tried to fight back immediately. But the problem was the media was in the tank for Pete Buttigieg to help Joe Biden. It wasn't for Pete. It was using Pete to help Joe Biden, much like they were been using Ron DeSantis to try to help Nikki Haley at this point. All right. And that's what happens. When you get in bed with those people, I just got to say this. When you get in bed with the people we have been telling you about for months that Ron DeSantis got in bed with, this is how they do you dirty. Peter Fye, Griffin, all of these guys, Murdochs, they will do you dirty in a heartbeat. And that's what happened. You want to, bitch and moan about loyalty now? I find that a little bit ironic. Don't you think? They range from local couples serving as co-captains to county Republican chairs and elected officials, such as Attorney General Brenna Byrd. This campaign is the best organization I've ever seen, Byrd told the supporters in Coralville in December. And she's not BSing. Excuse me. She is not BSing. This is a grassroots organization, the likes of which I don't think we'll have to see how it performs. But as far as just the sheer numbers of it, they did this quietly too, which is just unbelievable. Captains are critical. Here's why. They're required to attend a roughly hour-long training session, either in person or virtually. The campaign says it's held roughly 350 of these Iowa sessions by mid-December, and the plans to have around 500 completed by caucus day. Captains were kind of running around. They were young kids in 16. They were getting up going, let me give you 3 minutes on why you should not do what you normally do every year, and let's make America great again. And they were just, passionate, but they really weren't organized at all. And, they underperformed a little bit, but it was amazing. That in my opinion, it was amazing they even did what they did, given how a caucus works. This time, it's much more organized. And he ran unopposed in 20, but in 20, there's a lot of people that have been loyal with him that have kind of hung around with him, and they got to know how Iowa works. And 20 was like a dry run, or they learned how to put this together. And now they're using it in a more supposedly competitive scene. Captains each receive a 20-page handbook outlining their role and responsibilities, and it provides them with a suggested speech to deliver at their precinct. It also includes a checklist for caucus night, reminding captains to bring their photo ID, credentials, and campaign literature, cold weather attire, and 5 to 10 yard signs. Wendy Robbins, 66, of Coralville, serving as a precinct captain along with her husband, Andy. Quote, they called me and asked if I'd be willing to do it, she told the Register ahead of Trump's speech in December. I really never thought about it, and yet I have no reason not to. I can speak well for him, and I really believe in him. And this is his caucus captain gear. You can see, listen, this is really good. I got to be honest. I'm not surprised that they put this together. I'm not. I knew about some of this. I think that I'm surprised that they listen. Most Republican campaigns don't want to go out and let's have real talk. Laura will understand exactly what I'm talking about here. Hold on. Take it back for a second. Most Republican candidates, no matter what they tell you, winning a primary, a caucus, a nomination, and then on to a general election, whatever. When you tell them that you have a wealth of untapped resources in the first-time voter, they pay lip service to it, give you a nod, and move on. They don't do enough. They don't make it a central part of their strategy, and they sure as hell don't stun everybody by bringing in all these people. The Trump campaign absolutely believed it and absolutely spent time, energy, and resources on expanding the electorate. Why? Because it's part of his strategy in 24 for the general election. Everything we've been talking about on this show, I have to be honest, the new rural-urban coalition, the new non-white voter, the younger first-time voter, the middle-aged first-time voter, all these things that we have talked about, the shift in Hispanics, the shift in young black men, and even young black women now, by the way. All of it. They get that. They really do. And to the point where don't be shocked if Donald Trump pops in Chicago. Don't be shocked if Donald Trump holds a rally in the Bronx. Right, Laura? Do not be surprised if he does this. He gets it. He knows those votes are there. And this is different because it's a primary, but it shows you that he really is prioritizing this. Other Republican candidates pay lip service to it, but they don't do it, which is why every damn election night they're sitting there biting their nails, hoping that it's just a bunch of 65 plus and making up 35 to 38% of the electorate. Hopefully 18 to 29s are like 6%. That's what they're praying for. And they're not. Then they turn out to be 13 to 16% or more. 65 plus turns out to be 18 to 22%. And they lose. All right, let's get back to it. As it is. In addition to the white and gold hats, the campaign has sought out events across Iowa to make the caucus captains feel like VIPs, that some had reserved seats toward the front of the room. 3 caucus captains were brought on stage for a panel in which they talked about how they got involved with the campaign. And incentives like the RNC meeting and Trump signed certificates are designed to get captains to stay committed through January 15th. Yvonne Wessels, 76, is a co-captain in Southern Des Moines with her daughter, Renee Wessels-Baker. They both signed up as captains and firm supporters of Trump, but aren't taking a potential victory for granted. Good for you, ladies. I think this one is harder, Wessels said, referring to the 24 cycle, with all the people running against him. Trump has spent far less time in the ground in Iowa than others. Here's the tracker. DeSantis made stops across 99 counties. Haley had 60 plus total events. Trump had 17 public events since March. And of course, we all know how Trump campaigns. Lawfare is a big part of this. It's a huge part of it. And Donald Trump works when he can work, and he's not stuck in a courtroom. This was a hope held by his Republican opponents that lawfare would keep them off the campaign trail, and it would basically give Iowa all to themselves. And not just Iowa, but New Hampshire, South Carolina, you know the deal. There's the maps. As you can see here, that's Trump. It's kind of ironic if we were to impose it. Look who visited Iowa the most. Everyone made a big deal about Ron DeSantis doing the full Grassley, which is when you visit all 99 counties. But Vivek Ramaswamy is probably going to do the full Grassley twice by the time we get to the Iowa caucus. Around almost every corner in these convention centers, volunteers mill about crowds or stand behind tables and ask if attendees have signed a card or if they're interested in becoming a captain. A newly eligible voter from Cedar Falls, 18-year-old Ryan Bennett, attended a December rally in Waterloo with a group of friends. They hardly made it through security before being approached by a volunteer who asked if they signed their caucus cards. All you heard about was the caucus cards from DeSantis and never back down, right? We have 35,000. Trump has 51,000. More than that. This is my first time ever going to an event like this. Bennett, who said he was still getting a grip on how the caucus process works. Currently, it's kind of a learning experience. Wouldn't it be smart with somebody like that to give them all this literature to help them learn the process. Beyond the commit to caucus events, the Legion of Volunteers served as a vital recruiting corps. Caucus captains are given a list of 25 voters and asked to get 10 to commit to supporting Trump in January, an initiative the campaign calls 10 for Trump. And we're just kind of reviewing all this, but let's go through a lot. Because I'm not going to take a whole lot of breaks here. This isn't just for you guys know, sponsors don't sponsor in between holidays and stuff. They're out there, and I'll give you a shout out to them because we love them. But I'm not really required at this point to take a break. But I still want to get through quite a bit today, so I see it's 12:37 already. You look at the volume of folks we've had, the precinct trainings, we've had the commit to caucus events. Bobby Kaufman, a senior advisor to the campaign in Iowa, told the Register, we are truly a data-driven, disciplined campaign that is doing an excellent job of turning out these first-time voters. This is really smart. And look, they even got like 10 little red hats, Laura, because once they get to the 10, they scratch off, they get the gold and white one. It's smart. Here's 25 voters. Go get them. The latest Iowa poll shows Trump expanding his lead with first-time caucus goers in the state. 63%, and hold on, let me get mine, because I know that we were very, 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 very close to the Iowa poll. Hold on. I guess it probably was waiting too long in the winds here. Let me just go to my blog. If we go to the blog, and then it comes up. Sometimes if I stay on that page for too long, Laura, the JavaScript thing doesn't work. I don't know why, but I'm just trying to get my crosstabs here before we go into the Des Moines. I just want to see something. Because I think we were like really, really close. Republican caucus participation history. Here we go. No, this will be my first caucus. Trump 57. Yes, I've attended a caucus. Trump 45. The Des Moines poll, again, sampling errors for subgroups are higher. But they said that if they're a first-time caucus goer, they were a little bit higher than us. 63% say that Trump is their first choice. That's up from 49% support from first-timers in October. By comparison, DeSantis only has 12% of first-time caucus goers, and Haley only has 11%. We had it almost dead-ass exactly the same. 13% of first-time caucus goers for DeSantis, 10% for Nikki Haley. So very, very close. Obviously, we're all right. We're all in the same area, and obviously we're right. First-time caucus goers differ from the overall likely caucus-going population in a couple of ways. The December poll found a majority of them are age 45 or younger, 59% compared with 42% overall. They also tend to have lower levels of education. 28% have completed high school or less. An additional 39% have completed some college or associate's degree, which combine for 67%. That compares to combined 52% among all likely GOP caucus goers. That's a big deal. Here's Ann Seltzer's comment here. And hold on, let me blow my nose. Hold on. Excuse me, pardon me. Play elevator music or something. No, I'm kidding. Hold on one second. Unfortunately, I probably will have to go see her. All right. Traditionally, young people have not been all that plentiful in the Republican caucus going public, said respected pollster Jan Seltzer, who conducts the Iowa poll. Quote, it suggests that there are some things going on here that make this group of first-timers look a little different from what we have seen in the past. Exactly. And as you can, that's her overall results. Among those younger first-time caucus goers is Gunnar Neal, a 27-year-old from North Liberty who attended a Trump rally in Coralville. He said Trump's challenges weren't of interest to him, at least not this cycle. Challengers, excuse me. I think Nikki Haley is kind of a rhino. DeSantis isn't as bad. If Trump didn't run this time, I would probably vote for DeSantis, but it's just not DeSantis' time yet. Rachel Walgren, a 19-year-old from Cedar Falls who saw Trump in Waterloo, will be caucusing for the first time, having observed one other caucus when she was younger. 2024 is going to be ours with the way Biden is going and everything that's been happening, she said. Good for you, girl. She's like, this is our moment. Good for you. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. So as you can see, my point is, Iowa is a must-win for Ron DeSantis because he has nowhere else to go after. And yet the media will try to make the margin the headline, all right? Not the win, doesn't matter. So Trump knows this, and he's trying to generate all of this new first-time caucus support. If these people come out, I actually can foresee DeSantis coming in third. And let me tell you why, which is over. That's it. And then they'll ignore Trump's win, and they will talk about how Nikki Haley pulled off an upset to beat Ron DeSantis. I kid you not. Just get ready for it. All right? I've been around a long time. I know how these people work. If Rush Limbaugh was still alive today, I guarantee you he'd be saying the same exact thing I'm saying right now. And he was always right about this stuff. Always. He always knew how media was going to react. He always knew the move that, their angle. And it's probably because we both, have street experience. I'm serious. You just know angles. You learn how to see the angles. Haley's going to have the never Trump vote. And then there's going to be some people who like Trump still, but, I want to find someone else. They're not a majority, and she can't beat him. However, DeSantis needs the Trump lane. He needs it. He needs MAGA, plus some of that never Trumper. And he's totally willing to accept that help from never Trump. That was always part of his plan. Get some of the MAGA lane and get some of the, the wink, wink, we don't like Donald Trump lane. And that was going to be his plan. There is no lane like that beyond Iowa if he loses. It's just not there. New Hampshire is going to go to Haley, that lane. South Carolina is her big shtick, which we're going to bring up here in a second. I don't know why. Where is it not loaded in the queue here? Let's see where it is. It was here a second ago. I want to show you this because it's important. They're making this big gamble. There it is. All right. Nikki Haley bets on South Carolina to beat Trump. That's what we're going to go over here in a second. All right. But there's an article here about what her, her intentions are now that you got an understanding of DeSantis's and the danger there of what he's done. He's boxed himself into this corner, and there's really nowhere else for him to go. That's just the reality. So it's all about narrative at this point, and Trump knows that, wants to get these people out. There it is. All right, so that's the Iowa part. We know what the polling says, and Trump, again, I think important to remember, when we're wrapping up Iowa here, we're going to go to South Carolina, but what's important to remember is most candidates cannot seize on momentum from Iowa and propel themselves into New Hampshire. There are a few candidates who have not done that, that bomb throwing lane and have been able to walk that fine line. And Trump is one of them. So there's a big dent in everyone's plans if Trump does achieve with that ground game what he hopes to achieve. Right? It's bottom line. And I don't give a damn. I mean, if he wins by 20 points, it's a thumping. They spent $100 million plus in Iowa trying to beat this guy. Come on. Give me a break. So moving on. All right, so Nikki Haley is putting it all on South Carolina, her own state. But much of her home state leans towards Trump, the AP says. This is Meg Kennard, Gilbert, South Carolina. Standing inside a rustic barn a short drive from the state capitol, Henry McMaster shocked many South Carolina Republicans 7 years ago by backing Donald Trump for president. The then Lieutenant Governor McMaster became the first statewide elected official in the country to endorse Donald Trump in 2016. The event was in Lexington, Kentucky, the adopted political home of then Governor Nikki Haley, who had repeatedly criticized Trump and endorsed Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Trump would win the 2016 primary in South Carolina and eventually the presidency. After campaigning against him, Haley would accept his nomination as the United Nations ambassador, making McMaster governor. That complicated history in the coming to the fore as Haley mounts a spirited effort to become the leading Republican alternative to Trump. Her strategy is centered on a strong showing in next month's Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary before much of the campaign's focus shifts to South Carolina, where the February 24 contest could be the last chance for anyone other than Trump to prove they can survive. Timeout. Timeout. Very important thing we have to bring up right now. If Donald Trump wins in Iowa, goes on to win in New Hampshire, do not expect Nikki Haley to drop out. Oh, Rich, what the hell? What's she going to do? She kept herself on the primary ballot in Nevada. I know this because I'm privy to some communications. Even though the primary ballot is not going to be used to allocate delegates for the Nevada caucus. The caucus, for the Nevada nomination process, the caucus will. Democrats, Democratic governor, signed into law the new primary thing. But Republicans didn't want to go along with it. They wanted to keep their caucus. Currently, right now, Donald Trump is ahead in the Nevada caucus with more than 70% of the vote. It is 77.4 to 15.5 for DeSantis and 7.1 for Nikki Haley. They plan on using their contacts with Governor Sununu and the media and Fox News and Team Murdoch and Murdoch Inc., and they plan on spinning the primary win she's going to get because she's the only one on the ballot other than Mike Pence. They're going to use media to spin that she won the Nevada primary. I kid you not. You heard it here first. Get ready because this is coming. This is a strategy. Even though the primary vote is not even going to be participated in by hardly anybody, and it certainly is not what's going to be used for delegate allocation. They plan on completely gaslighting the Republican electorate going into South Carolina, pretending like she has a win in Nevada and is going to have momentum going to South Carolina. So the goal is edge out DeSantis in Iowa. Edge him out by a little bit and be, oh my God, she did so much better in New Hampshire. Potentially beat him in New Hampshire, which they really don't think is possible. Nobody believes the ARG poll because it's not real. All right. But if they can, great. But certainly come in a very strong second. Then use the Nevada scam to get momentum going into her home state and win the home state of South Carolina. That's the plan. That's Haley's plan. I'm not joking. That's her actual plan. Of course, there is a couple flaws. There's leaving a lot to chance, number one. What if you don't edge out Ron DeSantis in Iowa? What if Trump kicks your ass in New Hampshire? Right? What if nobody cares about a primary that won't be used to award any delegates whatsoever, and that Trump crushes you with 75% of the vote in Nevada? Everyone has ignored the Silver State this cycle. I don't know why. The Silver State is the third contest, not South Carolina. Contrary to many comments by Janera Peck, Andrew Romero, and a whole bunch of other people from the DeSantis campaign that appear to have not even read the schedule. Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada. Then South Carolina. That's Nikki Haley's plan. It relies on a lot of what ifs. If there is an underperformance grossly in Iowa, she has a much better chance, obviously, of pulling it off. That's why if you're a Trump supporter, you need to see Trump. If the best thing that could happen is for Trump to just completely bury them by 20 plus points or more. 35 would be just it. If somebody gets crushed by 30 points in Iowa, then I don't really know that's a historic win. Trump's current level of support in Iowa is historically high. George W. Bush was the Iowa king with 41% of the vote. Taken into historic context. By the way, he came across as too conservative. He ran the Iowa Hail Mary because the primary electorate was more conservative back then socially. There's more values voters. I don't even like using that word, but the moral majority, right? Whatever you want to call it. Barnes was here. He would just say what I want to say, which is there were a lot more judgmental hypocrites in the Republican Party than there are today. So he went on to lose New Hampshire, but it was all right because he won South Carolina. And it turned into a grueling contest with him and McCain, but the South Carolina win kind of like shored him up. Now, South Carolina in recent contests is kind of more in the middle. A little bit more like New Hampshire, actually, but I don't know about that in today's day and age. And that's why I want to keep reading this, because it's a great point of the article is that South Carolina, like Iowa, has changed. But her home state has shifted closer to Trump in the near decade since she last ran for state office. Again, her strategy is centered on doing what I just told you, beating DeSantis in Iowa, edging him out, or coming really close. Then either beating Trump, and that would be the ideal in New Hampshire, or getting really close. Then using the scam of Nevada, which is just not real, to help her build momentum going into South Carolina. But the AP rightfully says she hasn't won an election there in more than a decade, in near decade. And the state has changed, threatening her ability to tap into local roots to notch the victory she has promised. 10 years is an eternity when all politics are national, said Matt Moore, a former state GOP chairman. Trump tapped into thousands of low-frequency voters who have reshaped South Carolina politics. Many of them weren't focused on state-level issues prior or even now, unquote. The former president this time has the endorsement of almost every major South Carolina Republican. Senator Lindsey Graham, who ran against Trump, suggested he would destroy the Republican Party and openly questioned McMaster's thinking over his 2016 endorsement, is now a close ally of the former president and is co-chairing Trump's state campaign with McMaster. By the way, for everyone who criticized Trump's support of Graham, which I myself at times did, at least I always knew what he was doing. You think he didn't see Nikki Haley completely turning her, I don't even know what the word is, Laura. She vowed she would never run against Donald Trump. She promised him personally and made public statements to the fact. So whatever you want to call it, break your word, whatever. He obviously knew how important it would be to keep support in that state. South Carolina's lieutenant governor, state treasurer, attorney general, and 3 of its 6 Republican U.S. House members all back Trump, meaning endorsed. The only congressman to endorse Haley is Ralph Northam, a longtime ally. Trump drew an estimated 50,000 people to a sweltering 4th of July rally in Pickens, South Carolina, in the strongly conservative upstate. By the way, I think I said downstate before. I was swapping it up with Illinois. But by the way, if you remember, Team DeSantis disputed that number. Even the Associated Press and Fox News are saying it was estimated 50,000 people. Haley, meanwhile, set a record for her campaign last month with 2,500 people along the state's southern coast, known for its wealthier and more traditional conservative set. I don't like that word. The truth is, MAGA is the more traditional wing of the conservative electorate and the Republican Party. We have no better way to put it. But as I talked about with my interview with Jack Posobiec, America First is the OG of the Republican Party. Reagan is not more traditional than he's not more what is viewed to be traditional now. Like, this is the meaning this article is using. He was much more America First than John McCain or Nikki Haley or any of these people. It's not even close. And there's this period in between when Reagan got out of office until the advent of Trumpism, where unfortunately for Republicans, because it was a stupid political move, what is being referred to now as traditional conservatism was really plagued by neoconservatism, things that are not at all conservative, nor had any root in history in the Republican Party. Those were Democrats, in fact, and communists like Bill Kristol's daddy. There was nothing Republican about them. It's a shame how we lose track of meaning like that in culture and in discourse. We really must do a better job safeguarding the definition of words. For instance, well, I'm not going to go down that path, but fascism is not a right-wing ideology, folks, not in the American spectrum. Right-wing is limited to the point of anarchy. Left-wing is government-centered. Anyway, there is a wealthier contingent along the state's southern coast, but once upon a time, and by the way, Jeb Bush thought that he could stop Trump in South Carolina because of this. It used to be the entire coast, Horry County, Myrtle Beach, that kind of area, and that is Trump country right now. Look at how Fry decimated the competition in the primary in 22. It is Trump country. John Reed, a businessman from upscale Hilton Head Island who donated to Haley's 2010 campaign, backed Trump in 16 and 20. He's supporting Haley this time because he says she offers a contrast from Trump's divisive and respectful tenor. I think, and by the way, I'm curious to see when John supported Trump in 16. I guarantee you it was not during the primary. I think Nikki's the best of them because she has abilities and experience, said Reid. Trump's narcissism and pride and arrogance is just too much for the office. Now, I guarantee you, John did not back him during that last primary. Losing South Carolina would be a huge blow to Haley's campaign, which is counting on outlasting rivals like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and picking up momentum from people open to a Trump alternative. Listen, if she loses South Carolina by a point, she's done. She's done. You cannot lose your own home state. A home state primary loss has devastated previous campaigns, including Marco Rubio, who dropped out of the 16 primary after a blowout loss to Trump in Florida. It actually wasn't that much of a blowout, not compared to where Trump is leading the current governor of the state of Florida right now, or for that matter, the former governor in South Carolina, her own state right now. Because according to the Real Clear Politics average right now, Trump is up by 29.6%. Rounded to 30 in Florida. Rounded to 30 in South Carolina. In Florida, he is up more than 40 points over Ron DeSantis. Rubio lost by, 8 points? And he was done. Senator Elizabeth Warren dropped out in 2020 after losing several primaries in one day, including her own home state of Massachusetts, which voted for Joe Biden. Lexington County, where McMaster endorsed, Massachusetts may have went for Bernie. I have to go back and look. Lexington County, where McMaster endorsed Trump, is Haley's adopted political home and the area she represented in the state's legislature. She came back to the same rustic barn in April to hold a rally for her presidential campaign. But that's Lexington County. She was little known when she launched a bid for governor against 3 high-profile candidates, including McMaster, running on a message of fiscal responsibility and going after what she described as entrenched powers in Colombia. She aligned with the Tea Party movement that arose during Barack Obama's first term. That's why she beat McMaster. She, right or wrong, made herself the Tea Party candidate. Then she caved on transgender bathrooms, monuments to the Confederacy, and the state flag. And the gas tax. I could keep going. Her key endorsement in that race was Sarah Palin. Big deal. Big deal. The former Alaska governor who remained a powerhouse in politics, GOP politics, after her 08 vice presidential bid. By the way, she endorsed Trump in 16. After also being backed by Mitt Romney, whose 08 White House run she had supported, Haley nearly won the GOP primary outright, and she was victorious in the runoff. Haley's record. I don't know if we want to get in. I would be criticized if I don't read this. Haley points to several accomplishments during her 6 years as governor, including bringing economic investments and jobs to the state, requiring companies to verify the employment eligibility of their workers, and supporting voter ID laws. She's perhaps best remembered nationally for helping persuade the legislature to remove the Confederate battle flag from the state grounds after a mass shooting in which a white gunman killed 8 black church members who were attending Bible study, although Haley had previously dismissed the need for the flag to come down. That's called caving. Media contagion creates a mass shooting, and instead of having the courage of her own conviction, she caved. I'm sorry. Listen, I'll always poll people correctly. I'm being real with you. That's what happened. She's a caver. Should we go over the Bubba Wallace fake hoax? Immediately, she went to Twitter and basically condemned every Trump supporter for what was a fake hate crime hoax. Never happened. But that's who she is. So that's what you could expect as president. You absolutely can expect a gun ban. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The first mass shooting that happens, there will be a gun ban. Temporary or permanent, whatever. It's going to happen. Haley's presidential campaign points towards her previous popularity in South Carolina as she signals she will perform well when it comes time for her home state's voters to make their selection. Quote, South Carolinians first elected Nikki when she was the anti-establishment conservative candidate for governor. Olivia Perez Cubas. They now said they know she has what it takes to win because they've seen her beat the odds before, not just once, but twice. I hate it when campaigns for governors talk like this, because the truth of the matter is, and I've said it, beaten a dead horse all the way through. That has no bearing whatsoever on how you're going to perform in a Republican, excuse me, in a presidential contest. It has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. By the way, Henry McMaster right now has a plus 28% approval rating. And I'm just curious as to Haley's favorability is decent. According to the Winthrop poll, it was 28% very favorable, 31% somewhat favorable, and then she had a 25% unfavorable. When you're looking at, again, though, a lot of those are Democrats. I'm not kidding. If you include when it comes to Trump and when it comes to Republicans, Trump is much more popular because Democrats, 10% have a very favorable opinion of Donald Trump. That compares to 18% for Nikki Haley. Democrats, 30% have a somewhat favorable opinion of Nikki Haley, 8% for Donald Trump. But when you're looking at just Republican primary voters, Nikki Haley, 38% very favorable. That compares to 52% very favorable for Donald Trump. Somewhat 33 for Nikki Haley and another 25 for Donald Trump. So again, when you combine among the primary electorate, what she's saying is actually not true. I just wanted to go and look that up. She has support among Democrats who no doubt are saying they support her because she's now a Trump antagonist, if you want to call it that. That includes Lexington County, where the county GOP has been roiled for months by a legal battle between two people claiming to oversee it. A split within a recently elected slate supportive of Trump's Make America Great Again vision. There has been some, should I name names? There has been division in South Carolina where there were people in 16, as far back as when 16 primary was going on, that were absolutely loyal. Lexington County is having their problems. So is Horry County had their problems. And then you got these like new people claiming to be MAGA coming in and trying to take over locally in response to a lot of what Bannon has been pushing. And the truth is, there's a lot of loyal Trumpers who were like, what the hell is going on here? I don't need to be replaced. I was here fighting for MAGA before you ever came to the damn state. So there is a lot going on here. Lexington County is a microcosm of South Carolina. Michael Burgess, who served as the vice chairman for the Lexington GOP, described himself as a never, ever, ever Trumper, has said his feelings have shifted towards populism in the recent years. He used to be never Trump. Now he says he's getting more Trumpy. What we've seen since the 2020 election is a concerted effort by MAGA to take over the county party mechanism. And essentially, when they do that, to drive out long-term establishment Reagan Republicans. And again, I have to dispute that. You're not a Reagan Republican, dude. All right. Nikki Haley is not a Reagan Republican. The Gipper was no neocon. How many times do I got to say this? The Gipper was not a neocon. He wasn't a fan of John McCain's. John McCain stabbed the Gipper in the back over tax cuts. He would then, and by the way, after sitting down with the Gipper at the White House and Reagan saying, do I have your support? Her wing of the party, the McCain wing, looked him square in the eye and said, absolutely you do, then went to Congress and voted against it. Piece of garbage. Yep. And look, support whatever policy you want, but I have no respect for a lying piece of shit. Then he went on to stab the Gipper in the back over the Department of Education. You hate, listen, all you Republican viewers out there, you hate indoctrination. You hate what they've done to young white educated, groups of people in this country. Well, you could blame John McCain and Nikki Haley's wing of the party for that. They stabbed the Gipper in the back. There wouldn't even be a Department of Education right now if it wasn't for them. They saved the Department of Education from real conservatives led by Ronald Reagan, or what were considered real conservatives at the time. By the way, Ronald Reagan actually had campaign signs that said, get ready for this, America first. It's just unbelievable how twisted up these people are. Now, what really is happening, and I hate to say, because a lot of people are getting swept out with Michael Burgess that aren't bad people. And I know, because I know several of them. I know many of them. And I don't mean bad. I mean, like, whatever you want to call it. Like, they're not establishment hacks. They've just been involved in politics in their area for a while. So when the new people come in, the MAGA people came in and take over, they kind of got swept out with the trash. And that's a shame. But I'm not surprised at all that the AP would go to somebody like Michael Burgess. You saw the polls, bro. Now you're shifting. Let's get real. He said he voted for neither Trump nor Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton in 2016 and supported Democrat Joe Biden in 2020. Said he had initially backed South Carolina Senator Tim Scott in the 2024 primary, but now he sees Haley as the party's best bet to beat Trump. So again, do you think if Ronald Reagan was resurrected from the dead right now, do you think Ronald Reagan would be doing that? Do you think Ronald Reagan would have not voted against Hillary Clinton? Do you think Ronald Reagan would have voted for Joe Biden instead of Donald Trump? Do you think Ronald Reagan would have decided that those forces of the Republican primary should be supported when there's an all-out political persecution of a former president who is again running for president as the leading candidate? If you think that's Reagan's party, you're out of your mind. You are out of your mind. All right, so we can move forward here, but the bottom line is it's hard to take. He said he doesn't see Trump the same way, even though Trump is now a former president running his third campaign for the White House. It's hard to take that lane from Donald Trump, considering the weaponization of the federal government that we're seeing. That's State Representative R.J. May, the leader of the state's House Freedom Caucus. He has not endorsed a candidate. One thing I don't think you can call Donald Trump is an insider. That's a tacit endorsement of Donald Trump. That's what that is. But there's still people in South Carolina who have been waiting for Haley to run for the White House. At the event in Bluffton, South Carolina, that drew 2,500 people, Veronica Wetzel donned a Nikki 2024 hat she said she bought years ago. Now, she said she's ready to vote for Haley in part because she wants to see Republicans win in November. I really don't know if Donald Trump can win, said Wetzel, adding she has supported Trump in past contests. Quote, we need to put somebody in there who can win because the last thing we need right now is to lose an election. So now, hopefully, some of the media narratives that you've been hearing, Haley's got a lot of friends in the media, and so does Sununu. And so they're really, using that to their advantage, and they're doing it very well. Something Donald Trump Ron DeSantis, was not able to do well was, and let me just show you guys South Carolina before we move on. Ron DeSantis was terrible at being able to, I don't want to use the word manipulate the media, but their campaign was not able to navigate the media and get favorable press coverage when they had opportunities to get it. In fact, because they made a lot of amateur mistakes, such as, making promises you can't keep, making expectations way higher than you'll ever meet. I mean, those things are amateur mistakes. Wait till we announce, wait till there's a debate, wait till we go here, wait till we go there. Quietly, Nikki Haley was just sitting back like, oh, I'm polling badly right now. Let's see what happens in the future. Telling people, donors and party insiders like Michael Burgess, don't worry, DeSantis is going to collapse because Trump's voters are going to abandon him when DeSantis inevitably tries to straddle these, two worlds, which you cannot do. And listen, she was right about that. I've been reading her campaign memos now that go out to donors for going on over 2 months. And they called this, how this was going to go. And many of us saw this happening. So, DeSantis's people just got used to having favorable, even created press in Florida. I'm not kidding. Like, there are literally outlets that are there now just to serve and give favorable coverage to Ron DeSantis. But they have not had to deal with the level of adversarial press that you're going to get when you're running for president at the national level, obviously. And he didn't really have the friends to help him out with that once the Murdochs bailed on him. All right. So that's, like I said, you make a deal with the devil, expect to get burned. You know what I mean? And that's what happened. Here's South Carolina, though. And if we were to go back and look at prior polling leads in South Carolina, the fact is everybody could drop out of the race in South Carolina, and Trump is still going to beat Nikki Haley if this continues. So she needs that momentum that we have been talking about for this plan of hers to really work. If you just look at, and it's kind of cool how Winthrop did it. South Carolina, of course, don't forget to look at our little map of the nomination schedule, which is really cool because it's now at the point, it has been for weeks, but I just haven't stressed it as much as I'm going to now. It's now time to look at the rules and delegate allocations to understand what a polling lead like this really means beyond Iowa and beyond New Hampshire. Hell, even Nevada, because that kind of lead is just huge. There will be a threshold that candidates need to hit in a lot of these states, and there'll be winner-take-all provisions, even in what are called hybrid or winner-take-most primary systems. In South Carolina, it's like a hybrid of an open primary, a modified primary, but everyone can basically participate. So the problem, however, for Nikki Haley is that she's going to need people who Joe Biden's campaign is going to try to get to vote for them. She's going to need them to vote for her, and in significant droves. And that at this point is just not going to happen because they can't vote in both. And so also, there are winner-take-all rules with the 21 district-level delegates, and of course, the at-large are also allocated to the statewide winner with no threshold. So if Trump wins by a point, he gets all of those 29 at-large delegates. At this point, even in the more wealthy coastal areas that we just read about in the Associated Press, Donald Trump is leading in those congressional districts. So she needs to win peel some of these away. And good luck. Even in the more populated ones, it's not that she's running that far behind. It's that he's still above a majority in these areas. There's like 3 polls that were conducted in the last 40 days. Of those, Trump was in the 50s in 2, and only in Trafalgar was he at 49, as you could see right there. I have to bring this up. I know it's 1:15, and I was supposed to do this kind of a quicker show today, but I'm almost done. I just wanted to roll through everything before we show you some swing state polls, and then we'll boogie out of here for today. But Fox News released that Iowa poll. You may want to go back and look at the dates of their Iowa polls. And you may want to go back and look, and I'm talking about Fox Business. The Fox Business poll, or the Fox News poll, whatever you want to call it, because they do it for both. When it's done for Fox Business, the entire year, they have released Iowa and South Carolina together. Iowa came out, which was a very bad result for DeSantis and Haley, and South Carolina did not. I actually asked, where's South Carolina? Did for some really crazy reason you decide for the first time this year, at the end of the year, as we get into primary season, that you don't want to pull those two together this time? Or can we expect this poll to come out soon? No answer. What I'm telling you is, for some reason, the Fox Business poll of South Carolina did not come out with the Iowa poll this month. And I find that super suspect. They've been releasing the two together for almost the entire year. Now, as we get closer to the primary, they don't do it. You got to keep your eyes open for BS like this. Last thing I want to do before showing you the swing state polls is read you the New Hampshire polling thing that I wrote on locals. It's quick because you need to learn how to keep an eye out for stuff like this. There was drama around the latest round of polling in New Hampshire. Again, the abuse and manipulation of polls is certainly no stranger. Neither side is a stranger to that. But the right continues to be the major purveyors of polling misinformation this election cycle, which is new. It had been the left. It had not been the case that the right was pushing polling misinformation more than the left since the Unskew the Polls movement in 2012. However, maybe we shouldn't be surprised, considering the same people now are never Trump running all of these other candidates from the Haley to DeSantis campaign. They are the ones who did the Unskew the Polls movement. So there are 4 polls that currently comprise the RCP average. And if we could, can we pop up the average for RCP for New Hampshire? Yeah, I'm showing you this. Let me not show you that. Let me show you the average first, and then I want you to see that as I read this, because it only makes more sense. It would only make sense if you were looking at the images at the same time or reading it. All right, but there are 4 polls that currently comprise the RCP average. They were attached for your review on this thing. The results range from Trump plus 14 to Trump plus 30. Without discussing specifics and dates, there was obviously an argument to be made that Nikki Haley was gaining momentum in the Granite State. The CBS News poll, which was Trump plus 15, started the speculation. The St. Anselm College poll, right, which was Trump 14 plus 14, continued it. And normally, St. Anselm College poll has done good work. They did blow 2022 really badly. They had Baldak only down by like less than a point, and he got his ass kicked. All right, so they've had some real bad misses. And by the way, I believe, if I remember correctly, they understated Baldak in the primary. There were questions surrounding both these polls. The CBS poll was very, very moderate than previous electorates, and the latter clearly surveyed Democrats and included them in the sample when the deadline for registered Democrats under the modified semi-open primary system has passed. All right, so that's weird. That's weird. And the CBS News poll was like 40-something% moderate. It's only 24. The last primary in New Hampshire was like 24% moderate. About a quarter. But then the UMass poll was released. That showed Trump with a 30-point lead. And John Claverius, UMass Lowell, director of survey research, and the associate professor of political science, said the following about the potential that Haley was catching fire. Quote, despite an endorsement from Sununu, whom the poll found enjoys an 80% favorability rating among respondents, and her attempt to thread the needle on abortion, she can't seem to close the deal. Unquote. He went on, basically said the poll throws cold water on the narrative that's trying to be pushed in the media. Within an hour or so, because I found out that everyone knew this UMass Lowell poll was coming. Within an hour or so, ARG, American Research Group, who has had a lot of problems since 2016, released bare-bone results showing Haley within 3 points of Trump. Folks, the coordination of messaging with the release of that poll, right after the Trump plus 30 UMass Lowell poll, is very suspect. Polls don't vary like this, guys. When I say every 1 out of 20 should be an outlier, I don't mean it should be Trump plus 30 and Trump plus 3. An outlier meaning Trump plus 30 or Trump plus 15, Trump plus 20. UMass Lowell put out crosstabs. They put out a detailed methodology statement, and they met the basic APOR standards of disclosure. The other did not, and was pushed by Sununu-friendly media locally and anti-Trump media nationally, to include Mediaite and Fox News. Outlets, both of which ignored the UMass Lowell poll. Even worse, with respect to Fox, the network has standards on reporting polls. ARG does not meet them. In other words, they were pushing what they do not themselves to be considered a reputable poll anymore, and they broke their own guidelines for reporting on certain polls. Trust me, I know. When they did the Rust Belt poll, I was bombarded. We need this. Where can I find this? If it wasn't public, Fox won't report it. It was public. This is how many shares of this. This is how we did this. This is how this sample's calibrated. This, but I mean, they needed everything. Go look at the ARG release. It has none of this. And it's clearly intended to benefit Nikki Haley. Some actors are just bad actors, but others legitimately need to learn how to smell bullshit when it's right under their noses. And from where I'm standing, it stinks to high heaven. So, again, this is why you need to sign up to locals, because locals is where you'll get stuff like that, but only more you'll learn how to spot it yourselves, you know. You don't, the truth is, you know, I don't want to say, be like, whoa, what kind of content creator says the people don't need them? The truth is, you can learn to do this on your own. You don't need me to spot BS. You know, when there's a credible poll that comes out that is against power, you know, the narrative that powerful people and big money want to push, and, you know, it has other elements of, you know, that make it suspect, like this does. You know, it's not that hard for you to spot. It's total nonsense. Total nonsense. Yeah, I know. Dan Wilson. I mean, let's go through a couple because it's 123. Let's go through a couple of these. Lindsey Graham went on Fox and advised Biden to blow Iran off the map. The man is insane. He sure as hell is. I know it. I know it. But if you want to win South Carolina, it's better to make nice with him than it is to make enemies of him, especially when, you know, you're trying to win against a former governor in his state. I totally get it, though. I really do. And, oh, man, a lot of people are showing this. How much of Trump's games with non-whites are coming from those without college degrees? Depends on the poll, Snow Leopard. That's a great question, though. Depends on the poll. The truth is, I guess maybe you didn't hear this one, but we were reading an article from Ray Texera the other week. And the reason why I read it is because he's right, or at least he's right in our poll. The shift among non-college voters is more prevalent among the shift to Trump is more prevalent among non-whites than it is among whites. So you can't get to the numbers Trump is at with non-college voters unless you're also winning non-white elements. You know, the polls always love to report white working class, and that's great and everything, but it's like you're only going to maximize a certain amount of that share of the vote. If you're going to keep increasing overall with working class voters, 60s, whatever, you have to get non-whites. And the truth is, a lot of his non-white vote shift is coming. Most of it is coming from non-college voters. It's like that's why Ray Texera was arguing this is even worse for Biden and Democrats than they think, or even the polls may suggest they are, because he's the author of the emerging Democrat. Oh, excuse me, it's all BS. So the emerging Democratic majority, which is the book that's counter to this, the emerging Republican majority. Oops. And Texera would have been right had the non-college working class base that Democrats were holding on to under Obama stayed with them. But they're not. And you can't just do that with whites. And what he's trying to argue, especially with the Electoral College, Georgia, Michigan, all of these states, if the non-college numbers are real, which I obviously believe they are, it could be worse than the polls suggest. Because if they tend to vote very sporadically, someone like Trump does get them out, and they're overrepresented in the Electoral College. The fact that that shift is away from Biden since 20 is even more prevalent among non-whites without a college degree than it is among whites with a college degree, is even more damning. It means a lot of that, like we've talked about over and over again, this urban rural coalition, you slash a little bit off that urban margin, guys, and you keep that rural vote up while you do respectable in the suburbs. It's devastating to a Democrat statewide vote tally. It's devastating. And yes, I mean the deep state propagandists. Absolutely. I mean, Cecilia, what you saw with that ARG poll was 100% propaganda. 100%. And by the way, notice something looking at this? Let me blow my nose while you look. Oh, excuse me. I should have muted it. There's no ARG poll. Now, ARG's not like us. We just never got on Real Clear, which I anticipate we will, by the way. But they're not like us. They used to be on it. They're not anymore for several reasons. They've had some really, really, really bad cycles where they have been way out like this. I can understand CBS and St. Anselm, even though St. Anselm polled Democrats, folks. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of Haley's, that's why she's at 30. Even in the CBS News poll, she was below 30, just below it. But CBS News was just more moderate Republican. That's still defendable somewhat. But Anselm put Democrats in there, of which he was winning more than 60% of the vote. It was like 67 or something, 69. And they were a large chunk. And when another pollster contacts you and says, can you tell me exactly how many Democrats you put in that sample? And you go dark, guys, that's not legitimate behavior. I'm sorry. It's not. They're lucky they're still on. I mean, they're on there. They have until 22. They had a great history. You can go see that on Real Clear Politics, actually. They did not overstate Hillary Clinton's support like the University of New Hampshire did. That's just a terrible poll. Life of Brian. No joke, I once read a Con Inc. mag, National Review, defending Potter and the Pottersville scheme on free market grounds. Jack Posobiec is all over Twitter talking about this today. Me and him had this conversation. We had it live as well recently, but Jack and I have had these like spiritual conversations privately, and that's what Con Inc. is, Pottersville. They want Pottersville. It's a Wonderful Life. MAGA is on Team Georgia's side. MAGA is on the side of the old building, the savings and loan building. Con Inc., under the guise of free market capitalism, and then what Tucker rightfully called the scam of free market libertarianism that benefits them and punishes everybody else, keeps their status quo. It's a scam. That's why they've been rejected over and over and over again. Mitt Romney is 47%. They want Pottersville. To them, it was dirty of Barack Obama to go find a man whose wife died after Bain Capital bought her company, stripped it down bare bones, and took away her health insurance when she had cancer. To them, that was hitting below the belt. Because to them, Pottersville is okay. And they still thought somehow he was going to win Ohio after that ad. Brian is 100% correct. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's their own words. We don't even have to try to put it in their mouths. That's who they are. Can you think about Tucker as VP? What does that, I mean, it's interesting. We conducted, in case people don't know, this is all off on locals. I mean, on YouTube. We did the Turning Point Action America Fest 2023 straw poll. Tucker won with a pretty strong plurality. After that was Vivek. They liked Vivek. Quite a bit of them did. You know what? Let me see if I can. I was just talking to him before too, so let me see. It was covered on Real Clear Politics. We could show that. I wanted to actually show you the results though. Let me show you the actual. Did he link to it? He didn't link to it, right? No, he didn't. I would actually like to show you the results. They made it public. It's all right. Oh, that's a PDF. No, I want the online version. Online. Because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. Is this the public consumption one? There's two. That's internal use only. Whoops, can't do that one. Okay, here we go. Here's the public one. All right. So I think Tucker would be an absolute game changer. I'm just not sure he would ever do it. I'm really not sure he would ever do it. But very clear the activist group of the base does like Tucker. You could see these people are going to vote. Trump absolutely crushed the straw poll, 83%. That was the biggest lead he had in any turning point straw poll yet, including the one we did, in which he won with last year's straw poll, but it wasn't by this much. If Donald Trump wins the nomination, who do you prefer as vice president? 35% said Tucker, 26% said Vivek, 13% were undecided. There were other write-ins, which I'll show you. Only 6% went for DeSantis. RFK was 4.9. Nikki Haley only 2.4. Kristi Noem and Kerry Lake essentially were tied in the others, followed by Ben Carson. All right. And then there was people here and there, MTG, others. Most of them don't believe Joe Biden will make it. A plurality said that he won't be the nominee. The base doesn't think that. Do they largely approve of the job Mike Johnson is doing as speaker? There is a 30%, 3 in 10, I would say almost a third, that have either no opinion or somewhat disapprove. And then, of course, when you have strongly disapprove is 9%. But they didn't approve of expelling George Santos from the House. They wanted a Biden impeached, and next after that, Alejandro Mayorkas. This is how they viewed the agenda. Securing the border and deporting Biden-era illegal immigrants was their top priority. Election integrity and reforms was their second. The deep state was their third. You see where people are going? Like, this is where the activist base matters when you're looking at a primary. This is where these highly energized younger people are going. Do you support the U.S. providing each of the following forms of aid to Israel, Ukraine, both countries, or neither? Humanitarian, 49% said yes, send it to Israel. 3% said it to Ukraine. That's it. Both was 24. Neither, 24. Military and lethal aid, such as weapons, ammunitions, and vehicles. Israel, 55. Give it to them. Less. I mean, folks, we asked over 1,100 people about their opinion, and two people said give lethal aid to Ukraine. 5% said both. 39% said neither. Military and lethal aid with combat advisors in limited roles. Again, not an appetite for that in Ukraine. 44% said, yeah, go ahead and do that for Israel. Military and lethal aid with boots on the ground. Only 19% said it of Israel. Almost one person said that of Ukraine. That's it. And only 14 people said both. That's all. They do think that Rona should step down. Would you make you more or less likely to donate? Some really cool stuff. Really cool. So if you haven't got a chance to look at that turning point thing, check it out. Really cool stuff. Let's see what else here. It's 132. So I do think it would change the dynamic, Olaf. I just don't know that Tucker really wants to do that. But then again, when you get a call from a president and they ask you to serve, it's so damn hard to say no. You know, like, it's just like you've been called to serve and you're going to say no?
I just literally said that in the chat room. It was so funny that you said that. I mean, like, even if it meant that you had to live personally, had to be more in the White House and in DC than at home, that is something I am willing to happen for the president.
Well, it's like the country. Yeah, you're like
for the country. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to say no. And Tucker's lived in DC, already knows that shtick.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I'm not sure what Arizona the same as Iowa, PA, or South Carolina. You talking about the primary? The primary in Arizona has been a blowout for a long time. A long time. It looks like we're about to lose battery. I don't know why, Laura, but we are. Where did Haley get the cockamamie plan? Acme. I mean, Kimmy, I don't know, but that's what they think. Advisors, donors, you know, putting this all together. What do you think the odds are that DeSoros is bailing out right after Iowa and endorses Nikki Cheney? Nikki Cheney. I got to be honest with you, and let me see about that wire. I think the odds are pretty good. If you think that, wait a minute, what's going on here? That's weird. Why is this doing this? That's weird, Laura. Hold on 1 second, guys. The battery is like not charging. It's weird. Oh, no. Let me see about this one. Oh, somebody pulled it off. Little kids. I mean, I see it in the plug, but like it connects. There we go. I see it in the plug, but it like connects together to make the extension, you know. And one of the kids grabbed it and plucked it out.
I'm surprised you figured it out.
Probably sneaking, looking for Christmas presents.
No, that was probably Rowan. That was Rowan all day.
I don't see Ron DeSantis getting out and endorsing Donald Trump. I'd be surprised if he does. We'll see though. We'll see. I just think that he's totally lost his mind. It's total. Yeah, Nikki Pence is a fitting pairing. I agree with that. I mean, listen, this is a very dangerous woman. I'm sorry. She is. I mean, we just better get ready for an absolute multi-front war. I mean, this is just going to be a disaster. And Pottersville at home. Yeah. So that's a good point. Looks like I've blazed through this as much as I possibly could. Why don't they ever talk about the Federal Reserve? No candidate does, because unfortunately, that's like Frank, good question. I'll end on this. Unfortunately, Frank, I think that we're in a moment right now where there are a few issues that are absolutely dominating everyone's thought, because it's like, if those issues don't get ironed out, none of the rest of it matters. Look at how the activists at Turning Point prioritized their agenda. It used to be a big thing, especially for populists. And libertarians could agree on that the Federal Reserve is a real problem. And yet we're consumed with conversations about whether or not we're even going to be I don't want to use that word, a self-governing society anymore. We're dealing with like these really crazy issues. We're being invaded? Will we be able to even maintain our culture? Let alone, are we importing people who don't understand self-governance? And then, of course, which, by the way, I'll be honest with you, it could be the ultimate irony that Democrats, in an attempt to import a permanent lower class to vote for them every election, winds up importing their own demise, right? Because we're not just getting like left-wing Mexicans anymore, folks. That's not who's coming in anymore. So I think that it's possible, a very real possibility, but we'll see. We'll just have to see. You never know with demographics and these trends. They have a habit of changing on you. And that's why Ray Texera is still writing out articles on his Substack. I was right, except for this, right? You needed those working class non-whites to stay with the Democratic Party for your thesis to be correct. And it wasn't, because they didn't and aren't. So I always try myself to avoid making such grand proclamations about demographics being destiny, because they tend to change. Right. And I think, unfortunately, these like core issues there's like an imminent threat to our liberty that is soaking up all the oxygen in the room, and we're not even able to talk about the Federal Reserve. And by the way, the Agenda 47 videos, Trump did talk a lot about interest rates, and one of them, that's how he sees the Fed as a major problem in this country, and inflation, obviously. But other than that, it's not a discussion like it was, for instance, when Ron Paul would be running, or even Rand Paul, because Rand Paul and Trump agreed on a lot with the Fed. Remember that in 2016? If you guys were around watching the nomination in 2016, it's like Rand Paul and Donald Trump were on the stage in those debates, the only two slamming the Fed, like idiots who don't know what they're doing and dangerous morons. And everybody else was doing the Pottersville routine, and that's not happened. That discussion is not happening this cycle. And I agree, it's a shame, but that's because so many people see these other issues as existential threats to them right now, because they are, by the way, they are. All right. So with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. Think about this. We can pull Iowa again, New Hampshire for the first time, or Florida, something like that. I've got to figure out what we're going to do. Listen, I don't want to stretch us all over the place. Part of me wants to pull New Hampshire because I see what's going on, and it's disgusting. So it's like, if I come in, I've noticed this. If I come in with a poll, it's like, wham, cut out the bull. Like that's what happens now. That's our role. Like when people are pulling all this crap, if we come in and drop the hammer down, people are like, all right, we can't mess around, because if we look very different from Rich, we're going to look stupid. So I've noticed that's kind of like a superpower of ours, and I like that. However, we can't open ourselves up to the criticism we opened ourselves up to in 22 by stretching ourselves too thin. Georgia's not funded yet, so I can't do that, and that's a whole other. It's far away. Florida
please do explain the criticism, like the fact that polling from so far out.
Yes. So if we spread ourselves, thank you. If we spread ourselves too thin, right? So they'll go back and look at a poll that's 2-3 months old and criticize you for being off on it. So, for instance, Adam Laxalt in Nevada. We never did a final poll in Nevada. It was 2 months old. But they're like, oh, we had Laxalt winning by 2. Laxalt lost by less than a point. Number one, that's still really close. Number two, if you went back and looked at it, his loss was kind of baked into that poll. It was, because he was down in Washoe, and then he would have needed all those other undecideds from Clark County to come over to his side. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. If we spread ourselves too thin, then this is what they do. I mean, they use polls from Georgia in April, even though we did have a final Georgia poll for CD Media. We had Walker up by 1 or something. I'd have to go back and look. It was 1 point, but we had Kemp up by 7. And they took a poll from April showing Kemp in trouble because there was like this MAGA protest vote. And Kemp won by 7. Walker lost that round by 1. That's a good poll. But they'll go and they'll find an old result and skew it to try to, they're twisters and smear merchants. So I don't want to spread ourselves so thin. I would rather poll more limited races and have a final poll for each of them. Like I would rather have a final poll for Iowa. I think we would be able, I think we have that. And I think that's in the budget. Like that would be the smarter budget move. Or we could try to throw our hat in the ring with New Hampshire or update Florida. I mean, I'll leave you guys to kick it around. I'll look at your comments in the section. But again, I just don't want to go all over the place like we did last time. We never had a chance to go back to Wisconsin. Yes, Ron Johnson won, but he won by 3 points less than I think what we had him up. We only got back to North Carolina. That's it, right? North Carolina, what was a couple? Georgia, North Carolina, and the final generic ballot nationally. So I'm just not
consistency is best.
Yeah, I am not allowing that to happen again, because the truth is, Pennsylvania, I was upset with the results of our final poll in Pennsylvania. But the truth is, we didn't blow 22 like others did. Others that are typically put into the same category with us. And I don't need to throw any names around, but you know who I'm talking about here. We didn't do that. Our generic ballot was perfect. Perfect. Almost. We overestimated Republicans by a little bit, but that's fine because the demographics were dead on, well within the sampling error. Very happy with that. Pennsylvania I was pissed off with. Arizona, I think we all know what happened there. And we didn't do a final really for Arizona. We were able to show you the exit polling that we were doing. I don't think so anyway. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe we did. Maybe a week or two before the election we did. But yeah. That's it, so, I mean, I'm not going to do that this time around. I'd rather be more limited in what we do and, go from there. Because what are we looking at? We're looking at less than 18 days left for Iowa. That would probably be the smart day. That's January 15th. And then a week later, New Hampshire. So if we did New Hampshire now, we would have to do it again in like a few weeks. And I don't know. I don't think that's possible. So it's either save the New Hampshire poll, save it, and just do a one right before the election, or do another final Iowa. I personally would like to do a final Iowa. We've been polling it much, 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 much more than many of these other pollsters. We have now 3 or 4 Iowa polls. That would be though, that I just think that would be the right thing to do. Plus, the Iowa poll goes with the Rust Belt polling that we do. So I just think that would be the right thing to do. The more responsible thing to do. I guess what I'm saying, Laura, right? That makes sense, right? You know what I mean? Okay.
Mathematically speaking, yes, it's the more responsible thing to do because then it shows the consistency throughout.
It's more consistent. Thank you. Yes.
Because it's with math, you just can't go 2-3 months without data points.
I don't like dipping. Yeah, I don't like dipping my toe in the water anyway, out and here and there. And it's like pick the races you're going to do and do that. Yeah.
It's the only way to show consistency and the accuracy of your polling. Honestly,
yeah, I
you.
Big believer that if you track a race, you're going to be more accurate, or at least you should. I mean, theoretically, for many reasons, you should be. Than whether you just dip your toe in the water in the last minute, But it's nice. It's nice to have at least the ability to look, we did it a lot this year. Like, get out of here. Iowa is not that close. Here's another poll. Cut the crap. To show the trends nationally that we've been able to show, So, I mean, we had drug a lot of these people out of the fringe tranches. And I really do think that that's part of the role we play. I really do. And it's a good role. It's a positive role. All right. So with that in mind, think over what you guys want. And then I'll take into consideration. I'll check out the comments after. What else? I'm not missing anything. Going to be a light, easy week this week. We'll come on. We'll have a little fun. We'll shoot the on Friday. But, it's kind of like a very light day. We take it easy. We don't take it off. And then what was I going to say? Oh, the Christmas poll I wanted to bring up was a huge success. People love that. I got text messages everywhere. We're going to do that every damn year. So we will make our national poll even after the election next year. The final one for the year will not be in November. It'll be December because the Christmas poll was really cool. People very much enjoyed that. And you got to have, I don't know why Gallup stopped doing it. Rasmussen had some similar questions. That was really cool. Oh, somebody had asked me about, the national poll with Rasmussen's a little bit weird. I have to explain this to people. I'm not saying they're doing something wrong. I'm just saying that it is a little bit weird how you got to know how to report it or read it. And by the way, because I'm going to show you something anyway, on the new Real Clear polling site, I strongly suggest you click this right here. It says RCP Alert, Real Clear Polling. Your go-to source just got even better. You see the read more tab here? Here, let me make that bigger. You see that over to the right? Read this. This is an article from Sean Trendy. Not even really an article. It's kind of like a guide. How do you read polls? All right? I think everybody should take the time to read that. What do you get out of them? Kind of thing. All right. So here's the national number. You can see Trump is up by 51 in it. That's how you share it. I'm trying to figure out where the link is for clicking on the actual trend. Because in the actual trend was, let's go to polls. Nope. There we go. Is this just going to take me to the same thing? I'm trying to get you the table for the Rasmussen one. Here's the new one. As you can see, it's really cool. There's the view polls thing. All right. So if we view the polls within this, there we go. All right. You see Rasmussen is really low on everybody else. DeSantis totally collapsed. He's tied with Christie now at 9. It's still Trump plus 38, which is less than some of the other ones. Fox has Trump at 69. We had Trump at 64. New York Times has him at 64. The Economist, YouGov 60, Quinnipiac 67, Yahoo News, anyone that's really, and you can see The Economist is also lower. Same data set. I can't believe the media allows them to get away with this. It's not right, but they're both using the YouGov data set, and it is not okay because it's basically the same data, and The Economist is just able to twist it how they want or weight it how they want. YouGov, same thing. It is not cool. Anyway, Rasmussen, if you look at their crosstabs, what you'll see is that that 51 is what they're calling all primary voters, but it doesn't appear to me that they're screening or weighting based on eligibility, and they are likelihood, but I can't. Yeah, let me see. I can pull it up. So I'm going to say I think that there are people in there that probably are not eligible to vote in their state. Let me show you what I mean. Get rid of the table because it's the only thing that explains why they're so far out there than some of the other ones. And then if you look just at people who call themselves Republicans, it's obviously a very different look. See, Trump is more, that's more like some of the other polls, 69, 9, 9. And then all likely voters is Trump, 51. That's what it is. 21% of Democrats. And then the others here, we screen based on the state and ask people, they have to tell us whether or not they're eligible or not. And then we screen based on the state. I know a lot of other people do. I don't think they're doing that here, which is fine. I know some other pollsters just don't do it. I teach it. Yeah. I mean, everyone can have their own way of doing it. I just don't think, I don't think it's as accurate as a picture. What I think would happen is you're going to get a more moderate, even a more liberal electorate than the rest. You just got out of it? Did you just click? It died. Okay, because it just bit. All right. So with that in mind, we're going to kick rocks. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because somebody had asked that, and I believe it was locals right in the beginning, and that's what's going on, and that's why I think you're seeing them with a little bit more, undecided and a little bit less understanding, of it being that conservative. It should be more. Do they have the weights down here for? Yeah. See, I mean, it's nationally D+3. I
don't think it's intentional.
Does there? No, I just think that it's an easier way to do it, and I get that. It's just I would be concerned that it comes out too moderate and it's not representative.
Accurate representation.
Some are semi-closed, some are semi-closed primaries, some are open primaries, some are closed primaries, and we have like a pipe that allows us to know when they sign up for the screener where they're coming from. So if they say they're in Iowa, and I know they're a registered independent or something, and they're past the deadline, or New Hampshire, something like that, right? Where they're closed and screened out of it, and they're past that deadline, but they say, "Oh, I'm going to vote in the Republican primary anyway." No, you're not. You're full of it, No. Yeah, you're not. You're full of crap. So, right. Tell me the nice, but at least we know how to go. Whoa, look, they got little dirty hands on their thing. All right, so listen, again, everyone's to each his own, and it doesn't mean they're wrong. It's just everyone's a little bit different in how they do things. Right? And I just think that some people, maybe Quinnipiac, for instance, that's probably a good example. Maybe they're being a little bit too strong with the screen, and we don't, we're trying to make sure that we do grab that first-time person. So maybe there are some states where their eligibility is not set yet, but it'll say, listen, are you aware that you have until whatever day to change your registration to make sure that you're eligible to vote in this primary, right? And by the way, that's going to be an issue. Democrats have a different day, but it doesn't matter. Democrats are going to need their people to get out for Joe Biden in the state of South Carolina. That's why they front-loaded that state, and that's going to hurt Nikki Haley because she needed people to cross over and vote for her, and we'll just see if that happened. I think that's it. Yeah, I think I got to all of them. It's already 1:55. I always say that we're going to make this a shorter thing, and I never do. All right, so with that in mind, we'll make it easy. We'll take it easy. Keep your eyes peeled to locals and and Twitter and elsewhere. If we do have some interview, we jump on. I'll be sure to let you know. Keep that question in mind. What do you think? Should we wait and do something final in New Hampshire, or just do the idea of Iowa and continue with Florida? Thing is, it could be over and he may not get to Florida. It's likely he's not going to get to Florida, but highly likely, right? So that opens up. Or do we want to poll New Hampshire, or do we want to poll South Carolina? So I don't know. Throw your things in the, throw your comments and ideas in the box, and we'll read them. All right. So I hope everyone's listening. It's going to be New Year's. If you don't pop on for Friday, have a safe New Year's Eve. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which is at my old age quite a bit. So be careful.
Just be safe.
Let's be safe. Have fun.
Smart decisions.
Smart decisions. We're gonna stay. We decided we're staying in. We're not doing. We were thinking about going somewhere with some friends, but I gotta work. It's a lot. It's a lot. And people, there's a lot of crud going around. I want to step into the new year. I got 2 weeks after, not even 2 weeks after the New Year's break is over. Not even before the caucuses come.
Yeah.
Next week after that's New Hampshire. It's going to be bang, 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 bang. I want to just sit and kind of recoup, catch my breath, get ready for the season. Rest. We're going to have graphics for everything. By the way, even a delegate tracker, which is looking super cool. Oh, wait till you guys see it. Lot going on. And the primaries are going to be the test run each time. Hopefully the API for our own thing will be done by then, but it will be done before. But I don't know if it'll be done by Iowa. We'll see. But hopefully sooner rather than later, and we can have some really, really cool stuff. We're excited about it. All right, I'll shut up. I'll kick rocks. None but love for you guys. Don't forget, if you like the videos, like them, share them far and wide. And of course, the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. And we'll see you on Friday, folks. See you on Friday. Give you a little peek of the polls on the way out. Deuces. I forgot about those. Supposed to do a segment on that. What are you going to do?